So we're going to move to our next speaker now, which is Mike Ashworth. So over to Mike.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you. I've been hanging around the forum for about 5 years, and I have had the honour recently of being involved in setting up a new study group, which is the Muscidae and Fanniidae study group. So what I want to talk to you about this morning is why we need a new study group, what's so great about muscids and fanniids, who is involved in it, and how you can all get involved, because I'm sure by the end we will have lots of takers to get involved. Most people's view of muscidae, most people will tell you, yes, I know the housefly, Musca domestica. It's a nice, catchy scientific name, so many people know the scientific name. But their view of the housefly is not great. Most people think that flies are pretty horrid. They're dirty. They spread disease. They have disgusting habits. They vomit all over your food. That kind of thing. I'm sure I don't need to persuade this audience that, in fact, flies are great. They're beautiful. They're fascinating. They can bring joy and inspiration into your lives. And they provide vital, as we've been hearing, vital, important ecosystem services. Musca domestica had appeared in a movie. So this is The Fly from 1958, in which the protagonist is developing a teleportation device, and a housefly gets mixed up with his atoms, and he emerges out of the end of the teleportation device, part fly, part human. I love the bit at the bottom left where it says $100 to the first person who can prove it can't happen. Here we go. Most people also know about this habit of houseflies, where they exude digestive fluid onto their food and suck it up again. You're losing a little bit of the credit. It's the quote. It says, "Of course, I don't mind you vomiting all over your food, but you have to be so noisy about it." Of course, as you will all know, there's much more to muscidae than just the housefly, and this is the classification that comes primarily from the checklist. But as Adrian pointed out, there have been some changes recently. So this paper, Cutty et al., there's some slight tweaks in there. But basically, we've got 294 species on the current checklist. One was added only recently in 40 genera. And it's sensible to include the lesser houseflies. So the Fanniidae are known as lesser houseflies. Until recently, they were a subfamily of the Muscidae. So if you do that, you get a couple more genera and 62 species. I can't possibly go through them all, but I thought what I'd do is spin through some representatives of these subfamilies and tribes and try to give you a flavour of the beauty and fascination of these families. The tribe Muscinae contains Musca domestica and its closely related cousin Musca autumnalis. Our garden is bordered on two sides by cattle pasture. So when the farmer lets his cows out into the pasture, generally in April, the garden fills up with Musca autumnalis and various other dung breeding flies. So this is quite a nice photo. The white background is a plastic garden chair, and I was able to rest the camera on the chair without disturbing the amorous couple. And by eliminating camera shake, you can get a really nice result. You'll notice some of these are from 2020 when we all spent a lot of time in our gardens. Mesembrina meridiana is well known to people who don't know about flies, and consequently has the most number of records for any muscid. It's large, it's very visible. They sit around on sunlit gates and fence posts. Another dung living species, absolutely beautiful, yellow wing bases and golden yellow face on this one. Another one in this tribe, Polites meridionalis. Yes, that's right. Most of the muscids in the tribe Muscini have a bent, an angled medial vein. Polites is distinguished by having vein M straight. And I put together a little piece for the first newsletter, which you might have seen. We have a Muscidae and Fanniidae newsletter in the latest bulletin. Pointing out the differences between the well-known Lardarius and Meridionalis, which has only recently been recognized as a British species. You'll be able to see, comparing the pictures on the left there, that Meridionalis has a nice golden face and a yellowish golden anterior spiracle, in comparison to Lardarius, but those features aren't always very clear, particularly in dried specimen where you might lose those colors. But if you look at the upper squama, you'll find, I don't know if a pointer will work, it might do, probably not for those at home, but the upper squama on Meridionalis has a dark edge to it, whereas on Lardarius it has a pale edge, and I find that a really good way of checking that you've got that right. Sorry, Will, you probably don't want to see this one. The Stomoxinae contain a few muscids which have biting mouth parts. They feed primarily on cattle, but they will go for humans if there aren't any cattle around. They're another dung breeding species. The subfamily Mydeinae, the radial node is cellulose on both sides. In the genera Graphomya and Mydia, so they're quite nice ones to ID. Graphomya maculata is quite common and widespread. You'll find it feeding on umbellifers in the summer. And the larvae live in wet mud where they predate other dipteran larvae. What have we got next? The largest group are the Phaeoniinae, with the large genera Phaeonia and Helena. I've chosen for Phaeonia a very common species, Rufiventris. There are few species in Phaeonia which have a bright orange abdomen, including the Phaeonia pallida, which is completely orange. Largest muscid genus in Europe. Woodland species mainly, because the larvae live as predators in rotting wood, rot holes, fungi, that kind of thing. For Helena, I've chosen a rare species which was new to Britain in 2014. Rob found a couple more records in Devon, and then I picked up this one on the Dipterists Forum week in Cornwall in 2021. Now we come on to some of the most beautiful ones. the tribe Cynosianae. The subfamily are identified by 3 strong catapisternal bristles in an inverted equilateral triangle. This is one of Ian Andrews' really nice pictures taken in the wild in Yorkshire. Tigrina, according to this paper, which I haven't seen, but there's a reference to it saying that these larvae predate the anthermid larvae of Delia antiqua. This is a fantastic looking fly in this group, Macrorchis meditata. This would have Chris Packham saying, "What a fly!" and he rubs his thigh. Yeah, it's just an absolutely cracking fly with long legs, and if you unhook the genitalia, they're really very distinctive. It is worth with the muscids going to a bit of effort to set them, extend the legs into a nice position, because you'll be looking for leg bristles in many of the species, and unhooking the genitalia as well is definitely worthwhile. This is one of the biology unknown ones. I've looked for information about this species, but it's reasonably widespread, but doesn't seem to be any information at all on how it lives. We saw the largest muscid. This is our smallest muscid. This is another genus where there's only one Palearctic species. And these are amazing little flies because the male has these prominent yellow-orange face. And as they run around in your pooter, you can see this thing flashing at you. Presumably that's involved with courtship. Mosses and wet moorland. I found that at West Hay Moor in Somerset, which is a lovely wet moorland place. These I love, Lisbocephala. I was at a bit of woodland, very tiny bit of woodland with a little pond in Cheshire in April. As you can see from the picture at the top left, the leaves haven't really come out yet. But there were flies running around on these sunlit tree trunks and branches. And top right, I managed to get a picture of one of them. He was cleaning himself with his back legs, with the wings raised, and you can see the paired dots on the abdomen. Lisbocephala is a nice genus. Several of them are known from woodland with running water and damp mosses. The biology is unknown, but there's probably some relationship there with damp mosses. This is the best. This is Lisby, the genus in the Limnophorinae. We're still in the same subfamily, and there are a number of these species, and they all have these large, expanded, spoon-shaped palps. The larvae are predaceous, and they live in moist sand and mud alongside water. Quite a few of them go for coastal sites. The most frequent one is Lisby tentaculata, which is found all over. That's not coastal, it's found inland as well. And the male has these yellow front tarsi with this funny little finger-like process poking down there. Presumably the palps and the yellow front legs are used in courtship, but I haven't seen anybody who recorded any courtship behavior. This is such a great fly. I'm going to run through quickly some photos from Ian Andrews, which really show it up well. This is a male again with the yellow front tarsi. This is a female where the front tarsi are dark. Another female from front on, you get a really good view of the palps in that one. And this is one feeding on some little fly. Yeah, fantastic. I meant to say that this site here, which, as you will see, was also on the Dipterists Forum trip in 2021. That's Nigel Jones in the background, and we spent a while on this sandy bit, and there were flies running all over the sand. And we found Lispi tentaculata, we found Lispi nana, which is a small species, which is distinguished by being undistinguished. It drops out at the bottom of the quay. And there was also a lovely little tachinid called Pericepsia carbonaria, which also has a coastal distribution, dusky winged thing. Yeah. The tribe Azeliinae, Azelia and Thrycops have little hairs on the posterior margin of the hind coccyx, which distinguishes them quite nicely. One of the only few big bristly, completely orange flies. I've mentioned Phaeonia pallida. There's a couple of anthemiids, I think, which are pretty orange as well. And there are the Dryomyzidae. But that's a cracking fly to find in woodland, quite common in woodland, where they hang around fungi. And we mustn't forget the Fanniidae. This is Fannia manicata, which is quite common in our garden in March. And the males of the Fanniids often have interesting bristles and interesting adornments on the legs. You can see just below the sternopluron here these long spine-like bristles that hang down, which are quite distinctive on some of the Fanniids, and of course the front tibia have these lovely hairy brushes at the end of the tibia. Fannia species often swarm in woodland with little sunlit clearings. They form these little mating swarms. And when they get into houses, they think they're in a woodland clearing, and they fly around in squares often. You'll see them flying around in a strange square. Again, it's worth pulling out the genitalia on the males because they're very distinctive, and Rob recommends identifying them purely from the genitalia, just matching it up with the pictures. He says you don't have to go through the key. I find by the time I've mangled the genitalia, they don't look very much like the pictures, but I'm trying to get better at that. Yeah, so that was my run through some interesting and beautiful species, which I hope will encourage you. And by way of further encouragement, we have some resources. The RES handbook by Fonseca is still very good, very useful. That's freely available downloading from the RES website. For the Fanniidae, Roskozny, Gregor, and Pont, the European key is very useful in addition to the key in Fonseca. That's freely downloadable from ResearchGate. If you Google it, you'll find it. I love this book, Manual of Central European Diptera, Muscidae, Gregor et al., but it is quite expensive. I think that cost me about 150 euros. There are different editions with a smaller page size. which came before this one and contain pretty much the same thing. You might be able to get a second-hand version. Then there are two keys available on the Dipterists forum membership area. Some nice documents that were put together by Stuart for a workshop back in 2010. I've updated the keys to correct some errors. I need to go through and put in some new species as well. And then James McGill was working on a set of keys which are really nice, but he never quite completed it, that work. But they're still very, very useful. And there are comments in some of the documents which are worth taking note of, where he thinks things might not work. And then we have online collections. Stephen Folt's been doing a lot of work on his Muscidae collection, and Ian Andrews' wonderful photos are on Flickr as well. I find it very useful having more than one key. So if you go wrong, as I often do, if you change to another key and have another go, you often find out where you went wrong. So that's fantastically useful. Here's a nice another nice Musca Osiris from Andrew Cunningham, who produces wonderful photographs and wonderful specimens. So I just put that alongside the acknowledgements. Thanks for photos. Thanks for help with the proposal. Thanks to Stuart and James for the keys, for DF to supporting the launch, and to Martin Harvey for help with the web pages. And how do you get involved? Well, you first go out and find some muscids, enjoy finding them and IDing them. Submit your records in the normal way. This is not a recording scheme, it's a study group. So we're not expecting you to send us lots of records. Do that in the normal way. We are trying to increase the verification effort on iRecord, so that might help. There's an email discussion list which has popped up some interesting things. So just contact me if you want to join the email list. Look out for the next newsletter, and if you've got items to go in the newsletter, get in touch with me. We are also on X and just recently on Blue Sky. If you do those sort of things, it's at UK Muscidae. So we've seen that far from being boring old houseflies, they inhabit a fantastic range of habitats. I've got a list here: dung, carrion, mud, sand, salt marsh, fungi, mosses, deadwood, and birds' nests. What a group of flies. Thank you.
I should add to that it's very much the hope that the 2026 spring identification workshop will be on UK muscids, and will the Fanniidae as well?
Possibly not.
Possibly not. Okay, but that's something to look forward to as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, questions. Do you want to?
Roger?
Like, just an observation. I think it's probably worth just pushing muscids from a conservation perspective, that they're actually quite a nice companion to syrphids, in the sense that they do a lot of the things that syrphids do. They're unusual because they have this huge diversity of life histories. So I would strongly push them from that perspective, that they're worth knowing about, and not only learning something about the adults, but encouraging people that are potentially ecologists to start to try and understand, what they're doing, where they are, why they're there.
Okay, thank you.
So there's a lot of parallels that you could get with, for example, the syrphid larvae people, and perhaps get them interested in doing some muscid larvae as well.
Great, yes, bring it on.